The Blue Jays clinch a playoff spot, but still have more work to do. Hey everyone, welcome into a postseason clinching edition of Long Ball. Rob Long, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Blue Jays writer Rob Longley. And Rob, I looked it up this time last year. You and I were talking about why the Blue Jays needed to lock up Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to an extension. We were talking about if Bo Bichette might get traded, and even if Bowden Francis would be a lock for the 2025 rotation. So how times have changed as we're now talking about the Blue Jays becoming the first American League team to 90 wins and to book a postseason spot. But it's clear from some of the comments in the celebration yesterday that there's still some meat left on the bone with the division at stake. What does this week ahead look like, Rob?
Yeah, Rob, what a difference a year makes in so many levels, right? And now we're talking about a franchise first, potentially, going from last one season to first place the following season, something the Blue Jays have never done and something that's pretty rare in baseball, let's face it. So, yeah, it was a pretty eventful week for the Blue Jays. You know, many thought that they would have clinched a playoff spot long before Sunday, at least Thursday or Friday last week. And, you know, they had that untimely 4-game losing streak and finally got the job done in Kansas City on Sunday. But really, the work is just beginning. You know, I understand why you celebrate when you clinch a playoff spot, even if it's a wild card position. But the Blue Jays have and must have greater aspirations than that. They really need to lock down the division title. They really need to be one of the top seeds in the American League. Because we've seen it, Rob, the last 3 times they were in the postseason, they went the wild card route and were horrible. You know, they failed miserably in each of those years, not winning a game. The other factor, of course, is the Blue Jays right now have one of the best home field advantages in all of baseball. They've won 50 games at home, something that they've only done 7 times in franchise history. And that home field advantage is a very tangible thing when they sell out that Rogers Center like they have basically since the beginning of August. So, yeah, they really have to do what they can to lock that down. They're in the driver's seat with a 2-game lead over the Yankees, which is effectively 3 games because they hold the wild card spot. But the Yankees only play last place teams the rest of the way, and the Blue Jays get back in action with 3 against the Red Sox, who still have a fair bit to play for. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting week around there. The sooner the Blue Jays can lock up the division, if they're able to do that, the better, because then they can start resting for the postseason. But task number 1 right now is to get that job done and win the division title.
Absolutely, and a big part of that is to give Bo Bichette a little bit more time to hopefully return at some point if he can make it for an ALDS. He was a part of that celebration yesterday we saw in Kansas City. I'm sure a guy that was watching from afar was Anthony Santander, who was wrapping up his rehab assignment there in Buffalo with their season coming to an end. A lot of questions, Rob. What do you do with Anthony Santander? Is he someone that you can rely on here in the final week to get you that division title, or do you have too many guys going right now that you don't want to sort of mess up the apple cart? Where do you stand on the Santander situation?
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how they handle him, especially early on in this final homestand of the regular season. I mean, obviously he was out of sight, out of mind for months, and finally got back into game action with a handful of games for AAA Buffalo. Had some success, a couple of home runs. Seemed to be getting some of his timing back as a hitter, and loomed as a potential late season ad for maybe a bout off of the bench come postseason. But now what do you do? Do you bring him back to see what he's got at the major league level when you still have the real need to win games and win that division? And who do you take out of the lineup in that situation? Or do you just wait until they clinch the division, and if they're able to clinch the division, do you just wait until that happens and then give him a cameo for a couple of games and see if he's worthy of adding to the postseason roster? There's the other possibility: the Jays are keeping what they're calling a stay ready team in Buffalo. The AAA season ended Sunday, as you and I were talking about, Rob. So they have a stay ready team down in Buffalo with some pitchers and stuff, and he can stay active that way. But I don't see him being he's not a priority right now, unless the Blue Jays really like those at bats that he had at AAA and feel that he could be a contributor. In a perfect world, he gets a chance to showcase himself over 3 or 4 games with the Blue Jays before the season ends, and then you have another decision to make: do you put him on the postseason roster? Because as we all know, when it comes to to the playoffs, impact bats can have such an influence on the results. And a guy like Santander, even though we haven't seen it since very early in the season, is a guy that was brought here to do just that. So yes, very intriguing to see how the Blue Jays handle him over the final week of the season.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on, and this whole final 6 games is going to be quite something. Either the Blue Jays are going to be playing in the ALDS or back to the wild card like we've seen in a few of the last years. But should be an exciting week ahead. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. For Rob Longley, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you on the next one.